In the name I am that I am, Sanat Kumara, I call forth the light of the living word, beloved Elohim, beloved archangels, beloved mighty Choans of the rays and the lords of karma. I call for the action of beloved Pallas Athena, beloved goddess of liberty, beloved Nada, beloved Kuan Yin, beloved Portia, beloved great divine director, beloved all-seeing eye of God, Cyclopeia. Let God's will be done, let God's will be done, let God's will be done. I do in the action of the sacred fire in this hour, descend almighty cosmos, secret rays. I am the holding of the balance of Lord Gautama Buddha, beloved Sanat Kumara and the seven holy Kumaras. I call upon the sacred fire, I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved mighty, I am present, come forth in this hour of the victory. Come forth in this hour of the victory of the God slain. I am the full power, beloved mighty, be with us this night. Beloved Jesus, send it to me, Lord, my Savior, Gautama and Sanat Kumara. Come Lord now in the victory of the God slain. Send the light of 10,000 suns. Beloved mighty, stand, mighty, stand, mighty, stand. Presence of only sort of flame around this fortune now. I call upon the great central sun magnet. I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved Estelle, beloved Estelle, beloved Estelle. I call upon the electronic solar rings of the great central sun, the seraphim of God. I call for the electronic fire rings. I call for the rings of the great central sun. I call for the great central sun.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Wednesday edition of Free Association Radio. For those of you who are familiar with the show, this is Navigating the Astrological Matrix. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the show, it's the same name, but you're just not familiar with it. This is Robert Phoenix. I will be your host and navigator for the next 2 hours as we travel around the sky and look at what's happening astrologically and also astronomically, because there is some interesting stuff going on up there. By the way, is it getting weird enough for anybody right now yet? Have we reached an appropriate level of weirdness after last week? Should we just recap what happened last week? Okay, let's start off with Monday. Boom, bombshell, Pope stepping down. First time since the 11th century, amidst all kinds of rumor and innuendo that the Pope is on the hot seat, excuse me, and that there have been charges filed against the Pope for harboring pedophilias and being pedophiles and being part of a major pedophile ring within the Catholic Church. Now, we had Alfred Weber on the show on Friday, and it was really interesting because Alfred pushed a lot of buttons with people. Alfred is not somebody that is treading in any kind of gray area whatsoever. He tells it like it is, how he sees it, and what his research and context have led him to understand and share with the rest of us. And some of it is quite dark. And the darkness was fairly intense, I think, for a number of people to take in. And also the certitude with which Alfred comes across with his facts. Well, he's put in years and years and years of research. Now, the big hook for a lot of people with Alfred, no pun intended, was Sandy Hook. They either got it or they got hung up on it. And Alfred maintains that Sandy Hook was a staged event, as other people do. But in his world, Sandy Hook involved not just a quote-unquote false flag or a psyop, but an actual taking of the children and putting them into this sort of distribution ring. For other people, they believe that those children probably never existed. And if they did exist, then they were just taken back into whatever strange world they were in to begin with. So that's what Alfred believed and shared with us. And like I said, he punched a few buttons, which I think is important. People need to have their buttons punched every now and then, just to make sure that we're still alive. But so we had the Pope stepping down. And then we had the Dorner, the Chris Dorner event, where he apparently got burned out of a cabin in Big Bear, and I wrote extensively about that on my newsletter. If you received my newsletter, you would have gotten my thoughts on it. Right now I have a new post up on the site, and it has to do with Aquarius, Black History Month, and the coming of the golden race. Sounds provocative, doesn't it? It is provocative. You should check it out. RobertPhoenix.com is where you can find the latest posts, and in it I get into the shifting genetic and cultural identity of race on this planet, especially here in this country, but race on the planet in general, and some of the reasons why that's taking place. And what's also interesting is I got a comment on my blog, which I have not posted yet, but it's from Luna, and she sent along an interview that just came out recently with James Casbolt. I don't know if any of you know who James Casbolt is, but he is one of a kind of a second generation super soldier. They had the first generation super soldiers like the Dave Morehouses and people like that, the Duncan O'Finians. James Casbolt is like the second generation. He's younger, and his story, I think, first broke about 4 years ago. Very intense, very controversial. There are some people that think that he was not being entirely truthful. His facts didn't mesh. Other people believed him. He dropped out of sight, and now he's come back with another iteration on his experience, and apparently he's back in the super soldier game. And according to his information, he's at an underground base not far from me, beneath San Antonio, where there are multiple layers and multiple factions of different groups deciding that they want to run the world. And the three factions, according to James Casbolt, are the group that is backing the Star of David, or the Tribe of David. Then there's the Jesus group, and then there's the Odin group. So it's interesting. You can find his information on YouTube. There's a big YouTube video with James Casbolt, and he actually talks about some stuff that I printed in the last post about the miscegenation of genetics in the DNA and why that's taking place and why that's being promoted. And I'm not a separatist or anything. People can love whoever they want to love. I don't care. You love whoever you want. Love knows no boundary, no skin color. Doesn't love whoever you want. Free love. But at a mass level, there tends to be a type of programming taking place around this, and for a number of reasons. Anyway, you can go to my website, you can read about it, and you can also go look up that James Casbolt interview on YouTube and make up your own minds around that. And then, if the Chris Dorner thing wasn't bizarre enough with his wallet being able to withstand, probably about 1,000 degrees of heat or whatever it was. That's probably a little bit warm, a little bit cooler than that. But let's just say it was 500 degrees. I bet you it was 500 degrees. That's hot. That's how you burn stuff. Really burn stuff. And his wallet survived, and Chris Dorner is reduced to a pile of bony cinders. Of course, they can pull out his teeth. Oh yeah, there's his molar. That's him. But his wallet miraculously survived. That's an amazing wallet. I want one of those wallets. Just in case. You never know. I could be in a very fiery plane crash, and there'd be nothing of me left, but my wallet might survive. So I hope that I can find one of those wallets on eBay. And then after that, we had the meteor in Russia. The thing about the meteor in Russia is pretty interesting, because when you look at the meteor and it's flying across the sky and you slow it down, there is something following this meteor. I don't know what it is, but it kind of cuts into the meteor, and then the meteor begins to split in the air before it hits full impact. It's a really unusual piece of footage. You can find that on the internet as well with this small. If you can find the meteor footage, they slow it down. It's almost like a disc. You know, some people think it's a UFO. I don't know about that, but it could be. So we had the Pope stepping down. We had Chris Dormer getting burned alive, if it was him, according to his miracle wallet and dental records. And we had the meteors, because apparently there was one in Cuba that also hit there. So it was a strange week all around, just a bizarre week. And then we had the NBA All-Star Weekend, which I think is strange anyway. I used to love basketball. I used to love it. I used to play a lot of basketball. I was a pickup gypsy. That's what I was. I'd go from playground to playground. And this is in my 20s and my 30s. I used to play all over the place. Loved it. It's one of my favorite sports to play, that and baseball. And I even watched a lot of basketball, but basketball has very little interest for me now, since I don't really even play it anymore. But I'll tell you why it doesn't hold much interest for me, is because I think that the players, I'm taking a little bit of a tangent if you haven't noticed, I think that the players' athleticism and their height has exceeded the dimensions of the court. And I don't think it's a very interesting game anymore. When I was a kid, basketball was in a transition. And it was in a transition from being mostly a very strategic, set play kind of game. You set screens, you were able to shoot the ball, fundamentals, basics, you understood defense, team defense. I mean, there are all these things that went into basketball. That's all pretty much gone away now. I mean, there's still some of that. But what predominates basketball now is athleticism and skill. And when I was a kid, it was a transition from going from that older game to a newer game, and the newer players were really exciting to watch. You know, they were really explosive. They could do things that other people couldn't do. It was fresh, you know, especially at a college level. That's when colleges were really interesting and fun to watch as well, because, you know, the admission standards for college were pretty high. But then you started to get these kids from the inner cities coming into colleges, and you know, the admission rates were kind of more, they were lowered. You had recruiting scandals, but the athletes they were getting were off the charts. They were able to slam dunk. They were able to do things, run and gun. You had the running rebels from Las Vegas. They were just flying up and down the court. Well, that stuff is there now all the time. That's the game now. So it's become less interesting on some level. And what I think they should do is I think they should raise the basket another 6 inches. They should lengthen the court probably about, I'd say 6 feet on both ends, make it 12 feet longer, and make it just a bit wider, maybe about another foot on each side. So players would have more room to move around in, but it would take them longer to get up the court as well, and they'd have to jump higher to slam dunk it. Shooting would become more of a premium at 10.5 feet. Trust me on that. Anyway, I'm going off topic here. But we had the NBA All-Star Weekend. I don't even know who won. That's how out of the loop I am now. But those comets were interesting. The meteors were interesting, and we've been seeing more of these fireballs all over the place. All over the place. Now, there is a really fascinating action happening in the southern hemisphere near Antarctica. And what's interesting about this is that back in 2007, 2008, when people started to read about Nibiru, Nemesis, the Death Star, one of the things that was written about Nibiru was that they had actually created a observatory in the Antarctic so that they could track Nibiru, because that's where it would be seen first. And a lot of people who believe that Nibiru was supposed to be here by now are still waiting for for the brown dwarf. And what's happened, instead of Nibiru showing up, is that there are two kind of out of the blue interesting comets that are on their way. The first one is called Pan-STARRS, Pann -STARRS, Pan-STARRS. And that's visible right now in the southern hemisphere. But the one that's really supposed to light up the sky is i-ching. And this is going to be very interesting because it is going to come to be visible in November. Now, November is shaping up to be a pretty intense month. We're going to have an eclipse, solar eclipse in November. We're also going to have the second square between Uranus and Pluto. And I believe Mercury is retrograde in Scorpio. Well, let's throw Comet i-ching into the mix. Here's what earthsky.org says about Comet i-ching. And this is particularly around October, November, and December. This is the time that we're talking about. It says here, Comet i-ching month by month, late 2013. August and September 2013, the comet should become visible in August, September 2013 to observers at dark locations using small telescopes or possibly even binoculars. October 2013, Comet i-ching should become visible to the unaided eye, but only barely in the early part of the month. The comet will be sweeping in front of the constellation Leo. That's a very important constellation to understand and factor into all of this. Leo represents royalty. Leo represents the rule, the divine rule of law through kings and queens. It also represents the birth of children. Would not be surprised if we have the birth of a royal during this time, quite possibly. Now, some people say that the child of Kate and William will be born closer to the summer solstice. We'll see. If that's not the case, then we'll also be dealing with issues around royalty and the passing of the crowns from one station royalty to another. So quite possibly, this could be a time when Prince William might actually ascend over Prince Charles during that time, that he would then be the next in line. Now, Alfred on the show on Friday talked about this, and that Prince Charles has too much dirt. He's too dirty. He's been around too long. You know, he had the Camilla Bowles affair. That's not what you want out of your future king. It's not what you want out of your future Antichrist, trust me. At least not visibly. And then there's the whole Diana controversy that surrounds Prince Charles. So, just by his, how shall we say, seeming lineage, he's not the most appropriate candidate for the rule of the British Royal Crown and ultimately probably Europe. November 2013, Comet i-ching will continue to brighten throughout the month as it nears its late November perihelion, which means it's the closest point to our sun. i-ching will pass very close to the bright star Spica and the planet Saturn, both in the constellation Virgo. Well, that's going to be interesting because Saturn is actually at that point in time in Scorpio, so I'm wondering where they're getting Virgo from. Probably because Saturn's retrograde. And if they're looking at this from a sidereal perspective, in a sidereal perspective, Saturn's in Libra, so it's retrograde, so it might be going back into Virgo. At that point in time, very well could be. Its perihelion, closest point to our sun, on November 28th will be an exciting time. November 28th, file that away. the comet will come within 800,000 miles of our sun's surface. If all goes well and the comet doesn't break up, as comets sometimes do, not always, but sometimes, the terrific heating comet i-ching will undergo when it's closest to our parent star might turn the comet into a brilliant object. Some are predicting that i-ching will become as bright as a full moon. So i-ching will take on the specter of being a second sun, two suns in the sky. Now, Pan-STARRS, the comet that's preceding i-ching, is already there. And there are people that are reporting two suns in the sky. So perhaps what we're talking about is Pan-STARRS. Now, are these even comets at all? I guess we'll just have to wait around to find out. Although the comet will be bright, you'll need to look carefully to see it in the sun's glare. That's exactly. We're talking about second sun. Some expert help around this time might be called for. We'll announce comet viewing parties as we hear about them. December 2013, this may be the best month to see comet i-ching. Assuming it has survived its close pass near the sun intact, the comet will be visible both in the evening sky after the sunset and in the morning sky before the sun rises. So we have an evening star and we have a morning star in the visage of i-ching. As i-ching's distance from the sun increases, it'll grow dimmer, but for a time it should be as bright as our sky's brightest planet, Venus, and it should have a long comet tail. People all over the Earth will be able to see it, but it'll best be seen from the northern hemisphere as 2013 draws to a close. January 2014, will i-ching still be visible to the eye? Hopefully, and on January 8, 2014, the comet will only be 2 degrees from Polaris, the North Star. So Polaris has been an interesting star as of late because it has been right over the Super Bowl, and it was right over Big Bear on Tuesday. Now, Polaris is considered kind of a malefic star. So it's going to be interesting to see what's happening around the world at that time as comet i-ching begins to conjunct the North Star. Now, what's also really interesting is if you play with i-ching just a little bit and you move a couple of letters around, what you get is Scion. Scion. S-I-O-N. Scion. So comet i-ching could quite conceivably be a reference to Scion or Zion. That's an interesting note to make. But for now, we have Pan-STARRS, P-A-N-S-T-A, excuse me, R-R-S, which is the precursor comet to i-ching. One of the things that I wanted to read to you today, it's story time, boys and girls. Gather around. Robert's going to read you a little story about the history of comets. Remember story time in school? Story time was one of my favorite times. I got to tell you. It was great because when I was a kid, it was the 70s. And there was kind of this, warm and fuzzy sea change in education right around the 70s. Like story time, you didn't have to sit at your desk. The school that I was at was a brand new school, brand new everything. It was a kick-ass school. New chairs, new desks, new AV equipment. It was a nice school. And guess what else they had? They had carpets. It wasn't one of these schools that had these hard, linoleum, institutionalized floors. Carpets and pads. You could even had pads you could lay down on. So story time, we got to gather around on the carpet, sit Indian style, or put our heads down. The teacher would read stories. It was a great time. I loved it. So gather around for a brief history of Halley's Comet. So we're talking about comet lore. And this is from Ian Ridpath, Cambridge Press University, 1985. So it's talking about Halley's Comet, but it's also talking about comets in general and how they were viewed through history. So this is going to take us about 5 more minutes. maybe 10. And then what I'm going to do is take a quick break because I've got something in my throat. And then we're going to come back and we're going to be transitioning here into Saturn and Mercury. Okay, so here we go. Comet lore. A bright comet is an awesome sight. The best of them resemble glowing tufts of cotton wool unfurling their gossamer tails so far across the sky that your outstretched hand could not cover them. Unlike shooting stars, which suddenly flash out in the fashion of a skyrocket, comets hover serenely against the background of stars, like a finger admonishing the inhabitants of Earth below. Ian Woodpath is a poet. A comet's flowing tail gives an impression of a headlong dash that is entirely illusory. In reality, its movement against the stars is notable to the naked eye only over a period of hours or from night to night. A comet looks like a portent, and it is not surprising that people always regarded them as such. Writing 2,000 years ago, the Roman astrologer Marcus Manilius summed up the prevailing opinion. Heaven in pity is sending upon the earth tokens of impending doom. Included in his list of cometary ills were blighted crops, plague, wars, insurrection, and even family feuds. In short, anything could be blamed on comets and usually was. Similar beliefs prospered in the Far East, where comets were called broom stars. From a Chinese tomb of 168 BC, archaeologists have uncovered a set of paintings on silk which amount to an identification guide to various forms of comet tails and the events they were said to foreshadow, including wars, famine, and death. Not everyone took an unremittingly gloomy view. In AD 77, the Roman writer Pliny the Elder, in his book Natural History, gave his version of how to interpret a comet. If it resembles a pair of flutes, it is a portent for the art of music. In the private parts of the constellation, it portends immorality. In relation to certain fixed stars, it portends men of genius and a revival of learning. In the head of the northern or the southern serpent, i.e. Drago and serpents, it brings poisonings. Now, what's really interesting is that if we look at Comet i-ching, in order for it to get to Polaris, in order for it to be conjunct the North Star, it has to pass through Draco, because Draco is the constellation that is just before where the North Star is hanging out, or Polaris is hanging out. So let's read that last part again, because i-ching, or Scion, goes through Draco. This could be a very interesting time. Okay, let's read it again. Well, yeah, I'm going to start with this part. I'm going to read the whole thing over. It resembles, okay. He says, Pliny the Elder, if it resembles a pair of flutes, it is a portent for the art of music. This part is interesting. In the private parts of the constellation, it portends immorality. So I guess he's saying that if a comet shows up in the loins, look out. It's horny world. In relation to certain fixed stars, it portends men of genius and a revival of learning. So it will be conjunct Polaris. We'd have to get into the math of that. Polaris is a malefic, but it is the North Star. It's interesting. In the head of the northern or the southern serpents, Draco and serpents, Draco I believe is the northern, and then serpents is the southern. It brings poisonings. It will pass through Draco. In the West, beliefs about comets were influenced for more than 2,000 years by the Greek philosopher Aristotle, who declared in the 4th century BC that comets are strictly an atmospheric phenomenon. In Aristotle's cosmology, the Earth was stationary at the center of the universe, and all celestial bodies, the sun, moon, planets, and stars, revolved around the Earth. Of course. On spheres of pure crystal, Nothing could be allowed to violate the perfection of the heavens, so that any temporary blemish, such as a comet, had to be assigned to the atmosphere. According to Aristotle, comets were produced by gases that rose into the upper atmosphere where they caught fire, apparently being ignited by sparks generated by the motion of the heavens around the earth. If these gases burn quickly, they produce the result of a sudden flash of a shooting star. If they burn slowly, a comet was the result. So let's step back from that. Aristotle thinks that the earth is at the center of the universe and that the heavens are swirling around the earth and gases are escaping the earth. And as a result, comets and shooting stars are basically going kind of upward and outward. It's an interesting theory. However, it's probably wrong. In the 2nd century AD, the Greek astronomer Ptolemy reported in his Tetrabiblos. Ptolemy, by the way, first great, he says astronomer, he was an astrologer. Ptolemy is the astrologer, okay? So the Tetrabiblos, that comets contain everything you needed to make a detailed prognostication, provided you knew how to read the signs aright. They show through the parts of the zodiac in which their heads appear and through the directions in which their tails point. The regions upon which the misfortunes impend through the formations of their heads, they indicate the kind of the event and the class upon which the misfortune will take effect. Through the time which they last, the duration of the events, and through their position relative to the sun, likewise their beginning. So where they come from, where we see the comet originate, which is like the inception of the comet. It is the procreative moment of the comet. So we have to go back in time to figure out when i-ching or when pan stars came into our perception. That's the conception, right? Similar claims were still being made in the Middle Ages, and such beliefs have not entirely died out even today. So Ptolemy, the planets in the West, first great astrologer, who got all this stuff from Egypt, by the way. That's a disclaimer. He says basically, yes, comets are a portent. Yes, they're malefic. And how do we know about them? We know about them through the sign through which they're in. Okay, so if we move forward, let's just do this together, shall we? As a kind of a project, as a kind of a classroom project here. Let's go into the future, and I know I have it somewhere. Where is my ephemerae? Okay, so, damn, I just did a reading this morning. I should have the ephemeris open. All right, let's go over here, and let's get into the ephemeris. I'm going to open another tab, and I love tabs. Tabs of knowledge. Okay, so let's go to right there, and let's get into 2013. Let's go to November, okay, because what we want to look at some key factors here as this will be the time, perihelion, right? November 28th, perihelion, closest to the sun. So that's where the head, theoretically, if the head is headed towards the sun, this is where we're going to be looking at in terms of the astrological influence upon comet i-ching or comet Scion, depending upon how bent you are in terms of seeing these things or how conspiratorial. So the 28th of November, so at that point in time, the sun is going to be in Sagittarius, but it's going to be passing through Scorpio. Now we look at, here's where I think, this is where I think it's going to get really interesting for this comet. I think it's going to be interesting right around November 1st, actually the 3rd, because the 3rd of November, that's when the sun will be at 10 degrees Scorpio. Will also be a new moon. So it'll be a new moon that day in Scorpio. And the true node will be at 7 degrees within 3 degrees of the sun. So we're going to have true node in Scorpio. We're going to have the moon in Scorpio, new moon. We're also going to have Mercury in Scorpio. and we're going to the sun in Scorpio. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 planets in Scorpio. At that time, likely it's probably going to be passing through Draco as well, because remember, it's going to be at Polaris by December. So we have some really interesting space for this comet to go through, both astrologically and astronomically. Saturn will also be in Scorpio at that time at 13 degrees. Mercury is retrograde, which I already mentioned, and I believe, let's just go one step further here, and let's look at the eclipse for 2013. Let's get into that just for a second. And we know it's in November, right? Just go to NASA's page, and here we go. The eclipse of 2013 takes place on November 3rd. What day was I just talking about? Hello, November 3rd, of course. That's when it's all going down. So we're going to have ice on, the solar eclipse on the 3rd, new moon on the 3rd, Mercury retrograde, Saturn in Scorpio, and the final degrees of the true node or the north node also in Scorpio. This is going to be a very powerful time. What else is happening? I'll tell you what else is happening. Pluto-Uranus square. We are going to see, I think, by November of 2013, the cards are on the table. That's how I see that time. Excuse me. The cards are on the table. If we are trying to figure out where all this weirdness is leading us, okay, there will be no question in people's minds by the 3rd of November. It's all going to be out there, whether it's the second coming of Christ or the Antichrist or World War III, you name it. We're going to be witnessing history. That's my prediction. We are going to be witnessing history at that time. And why is that? Is it because the stars are predicting that this is what we're going to be experiencing, that eclipses generally are considered, by the way, negative? Is it because there is a comet that is headed right towards that eclipse through Draco? Is it because of these reasons? Or is it because there are people that understand these dynamics because they've been working with them for thousands and thousands of years, and that they will use these dynamics, these cosmic dynamics, in order to facilitate some kind of planetary change, positive or negative? Generally speaking, as we've seen it, from our perspective, not so positive. So this is what's happening in November. And Pan-STARRS is the precursor. It is headed towards the sun now. And I think, again, because we're dealing with cycles and time, you want to keep your eye on May. You want to keep your eye on Taurus the Bull. Taurus the Bull, by the way, came up pretty prominently in the Super Bowl ritual with Beyonce. The Beyonce Super Bowl ritual was a ritual of light. If you haven't figured that out yet, go back, watch the Super Bowl halftime performance on YouTube and slow those frames down, freeze frame them, and watch the images that appear out of the flashing light that was taking place on that stage. Two things happened. When they had the Super Bowl halftime performance with Madonna last year, it was so freaking explicit. Everybody was figuring this thing out. I mean, it was just like, it was obscenely explicit. It was obscene in other levels, but it was obscenely explicit. And what they did for Beyonce was twofold. One is that they wanted to occlude the meaning even more. So it's hidden within the flashing sequences of the light. And the other piece is that they want to make sure that Beyonce, is a big star. They want to make sure she's a huge star. So they didn't want to taint her commercial image by turning her into some, campy version of ISIS. That was not what they were going to do with her. They want to sell lots of tickets to movies, lots of downloads, CDs, if people are still making them and buying them, which I don't think they really are anymore. But you know what I'm saying? There's a commercial investment. There's also a spiritual investment in Beyonce. They would not be explicit. It would be very implicit. So that's another reason why they took that tack. Look, Beyonce just did her little triangle thing, and it was headline news. You had Russell Simmons coming out saying, no, she's not a member of the Illuminati. So anyway, they had to keep it on the down low, if you know what I'm saying. She could dress like a stripper. She could bump and grind and do her little hoochie-coochie dance. But as far as being esoteric and occult, they had to keep that on the down low, as I said. So anyway, look to May. Taurus portended in the Beyonce halftime performance / ritual, and also the first of the major squares between Pluto and Uranus. So let's go back to comet lore just for 1 second and finish that up, and then we'll take a little break, and I'll come back, and then I'll do some readings. How does that sound, everybody? Of all the ancient writers on comets, the ones who emerged with the most credit is Lucius Seneca. A Roman of the 1st century AD, Seneca contested Aristotle's view that comets were sudden fires, arguing instead that they were celestial bodies moving on orbits like planets, and that they might reappear given time. Prophetically, he wrote, men will someday be able to demonstrate in what regions comets have their paths, why they move so far from the planets, and what is their size and constitution. But in his day, Seneca was ignored as a killjoy, out to ruin a good business for the soothsayers. 17 centuries elapsed before the first part of his prediction came true. The second part concerning size and constitution of comets is now being fulfilled. In the meantime, the art of cometary prophecy flourished, encouraged by the church, which was pleased to regard comets as signs from God. You could read into a comet whatever your imagination fancied. Comets were the UFOs of their day. This person obviously is a man of science. Facts, figures, measurements, and weights. Anyway, so that's a brief history of comets, which I'm sure you all found quite interesting. All right, so I've got some people on hold. You guys hang out there for a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little bit of music. And when I come back, I'm going to start our reading time. Not reading from the internet, but reading of you and your life and what's happening with you and how things are and where you want to explore and focus. And I'm here to work with you on that. So in about 5 minutes or so, we're going to have reading time. What do we want to hear? Do I want to play John Trudell? What do I want to play today? How about, how about, let's do this. That Magma. I never know what I want to play. What am I in the mood for? All right. So this is going to be kind of a long, do I want to do a longish musical interview interlude? No, I was going to play some Richard Mystical Sun. Well, okay, let's do this. Let's make this real simple. Somebody dropped off. I guess I was boring them. Let's do, man, I got all these. How about some old school? Let's do sound vibrations. I'll be back in 5 minutes. This is my doppelganger, Diamond Matrix with sound vibrations. I'll be back in 5 minutes, and then we're going to get into readings. 347-308-8995. Got a wide open queue. If you want a natal chart reading, today is your time to do it. Only one person in the queue. So hang in there from the 619. When I come back, we'll hit you up, and then more readings. 347-308-8995. 347-308-8995. Call in, and we'll get you on here. We'll get you on board.
One of nature's greatest wonders is the ability of the human ear to distinguish among the millions of sounds around us. Listen. You will hear later how these characteristics are determined by the frequency, intensity, and form of sound waves in the air. Recognize those sounds? Surely. Loudness and quality. It's these vibrations which your brain interprets as sound.
All right, that was me. I made that piece of music. That was a long time ago when I did that. So, You are listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix, and I was just in the chat room, and we were talking about the eclipse in November. It is a hybrid eclipse, and I believe it starts off as annular and goes to penumbral. So it is almost like a funnel. That's starts off very focused, and then it blows open and becomes much wider. The majority of that eclipse will take place, by the way, over the northern hemisphere, particularly North America. So that'll be a very interesting time, especially with all the various phenomena that will also be taking place as well. So looks like we have the Skype caller calling back in to get a reading, which is a good thing. All right. So let's jump into the readings, shall we? Let's go to 619. Is this Eric? Let's find out who this is. Hello there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Who's this?
This is Donna from San Diego. I've called in before.
Yeah. How's it going, Donna?
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I don't really like the changes of the website though. Like in regards to the host key, I don't understand that. Do you know what?
Oh, you mean the Blog Talk website?
Yeah.
I have nothing to do with that. I don't know. I agree with you. I mean, I think they went for a much more quote unquote professional look, but I think accessing different shows and getting content is harder.
Yeah, I agree.
And so what they essentially did is that's an economic decision, and they've got people that pay them big money to have like their stuff on the homepage in your face. So you go there, and I think that's what they were doing. They were actually, creating this new template so that it can be get more of those people on their website. So it's a business decision.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. Do you want me to give you my birth information again?
There's probably a chance that I don't have it. So why don't we just start from scratch? Let me go. What did you think of the discussion on comments? What did you learn about that? Anything?
You know what? I tuned in a little bit. I just tuned in like maybe 10 minutes ago. I know they do hold a lot of energy, and I'm not really, I haven't really listened too much of it, so I don't really know a whole lot about the comments.
Yeah, it was probably the 30 most important minutes of anybody's life. So if you miss it, it's a bummer. Okay. Let's see. We're going to go to the scopes here. It's probably not good radio if I clear my throat on the air, but that's how it goes sometimes. And let's go right there, and let's go right there, and let's enter your data into the computer. Birthday, please.
10/25/67.
Okay, 10/25/67. Yeah, we got that. 67. Okay, and time.
6:30 a.m.
And where?
Corona, California.
Corona. I remember you now. There we go. And where in San Diego are you calling from?
Well, I just moved. I moved to UTC. You know where that's at?
I sure do. I used to live near there.
Yeah, right off of 805 and Governor, right there.
Yeah, I lived in corporate housing in UTC for a little while. All right, so there's your chart. What do you want to look at or get into?
I don't really. You know what? Let's. How about finances or work or in that area?
Well, okay, so I would say that the most prevalent aspect of your chart right now is the Saturn first house transit. Saturn has just moved off of your sun, and so it's going to be, it's at the midpoint between Saturn and Mercury in your chart. And one of the things that you've got, where's your Mars? Your Mars is at 1 Capricorn. One of the things that if, I may sound like a broken record to some of the people that listen to the show, but one of the things that the Saturn first house transit does, and I believe it's a really important transit, especially as it goes across your sun. So if we go back to October of 2012, that's when Saturn actually hit your sun, your Scorpio sun at 1 degree. So you'd want to look back at that time in October and find out what was going on in your life and what kind of changes you
Well,
made.
I moved, so.
That's a change. That's a significant change, even if it's did you move like across town or whatever?
And just from a relationship also. So.
Oh, okay. So there you go. So so you moved. So you're in a relationship. You probably moved out of the house and you got your own place. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. That's the start of a whole new Saturn cycle. So the Saturn crossing your Sun is a very important time in your development. It's going to take 29 years for Saturn to go all the way back around, right? And hit your Sun again. So it's a big time for you. It's a big time for anybody when Saturn crosses their Sun. And wherever the Sun is, that's where the most important kind of point of departure is. So for you, it's about your identity. Now you're out of a relationship. You've got a new place. So it's all about you right now, right? So this is important. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when Saturn is in the first house, it's about the consolidation of resources on a personal level. So you've got to look at everything from your bank account, investments, if you have any, to, where you live, your body. Your body's really important when Saturn makes a first house transit. You want to look at your diet. You want to look at all these things that directly impact you, Donna, as an individual, right? And you want to bring it all together. Very important, because Saturn is gravity. Saturn is compression. So you want to bring it all together in the structure of the self. And Scorpio is about power. It's a sign that is really invested in power, psychic power, sexual power, personal power, monetary power. So when Saturn is in your first house, it's also about gathering power, and by bringing in all these different elements and really, getting very clear, lucid, and focused and organized, what you're hoping to do here is augment your personal power, and personal power is really good when you apply it towards ends that are going to be kind of life affirming or life fulfilling, either in your own life or in other people's lives. So it's not like you're creating personal power so that you can, rob and steal and get away with it. This is not a psychopathic kind of accumulation of force, right? So what you're trying to do is you're trying to bring it all together. I mean, unless of course you want to do it that way. That's entirely up to you. But what you want to do is you want to bring it all in, right? You want to generate some force for you in the first house, which is your identity. Your identity on one level is Libra because that's where your ascendant is, but your first house is mostly Scorpio. So in terms of like a job or career or money, it's all pretty much predicated right now on you and you gathering kind of your resources and your life force again. So Saturn is going to be going backwards, and I believe it gets to 4 degrees in the retrograde. That's as far back as it goes. So we'll get kind of close to your Sun again. And if you've gone too far off the path, if you're not paying enough attention to who you are and what your deepest needs are, the Saturn retrograde will remind you. Okay, I'll go, hey, step back over here. So one of the things that could occur would be that you might have some kind of like, maybe you meet somebody, you kind of, have an interesting, few days, few weeks, whatever. And that might actually happen in May because that's when the Sun will be in your 7th house and, Taurus and all that stuff.
When does Saturn go retrograde?
I think it's happening right now.
Oh, is it going on right now? Oh.
Yeah. Let me just get a quick peek at the ephemeris. We're going to talk about that later. Hold on. Now you're advancing the discussion. So let's go here. Oh, hold on. Here we go. It's right here. I got it open. So Saturn retrograde, but it's going to be a while before it gets to like 4 degrees. So Saturn goes retrograde today. Actually, yesterday. It was yesterday at 11 degrees. So it goes back to 4 degrees, and then it goes forward again. So it moves direct in July. So essentially, how I would see that playing out is that there would be a chance when the the army of Taurus planets would invade your 7th house, which is the house of relationship, and that could be a time for you that would be mildly interesting in terms of like meeting somebody, or hanging out with somebody. But ultimately, as Saturn would move backwards, you would be reminded, oh, I've got this to do, I've got this to do, I've got this to do. So then you'd have to weigh out your personal needs versus something happening in a relationship that may or may not be entirely fulfilling or kind of up for where you are in your life. Also, there would be a time where you would actually see firsthand some of the patterns in relationship that you had left before come back to you and see again. Yeah, it may not be with the same person, but it would be a different actor, kind of similar role. Now, at the same time, we have the true node, which is also in Scorpio, and that's going to be, well, right now, it's going backwards, the true node, so it's actually headed towards your sun. So at that time, the true node is at 14 degrees and will be conjunct your Mercury. And when it's conjunct your Mercury, it's also a very, very good time for you to do some networking and really, kind of broadcast on some level, who you are and, what your essence is. Let me get back to your chart. Where did your chart go? Here it is. Okay. So in terms of finances, where do we look for finances? We look at primarily two houses, the second house and the eighth house. The second house is your blood, sweat, and tears. It's where you put your labor into. It's physical. It's ruled by Taurus. The eighth house is not your blood, sweat, and tears. It's other people's blood, sweat, and tears. It's other people's resources, other people's money making money for you. Okay? So the eighth house for you is where Gemini is. And Gemini now is moving forward into your eighth house. So it's going to be there until June. And what you want to do with a Jupiter eighth house Gemini is you want to find value in things that other people don't value. Okay? Now, I don't know if you are into going to garage sales or estate sales or things like that, but a Jupiter Gemini transit through your eighth house would be a fantastic time to seek out things at garage sales and estate sales or even online and find things that you could buy affordably that you could turn around and sell and make good profit on. Okay? Now, I don't normally advise this for people. I don't know why I thought of it now, but it just came to me. So if you have any interest, and you would be very shrewd, by the way, with a Scorpio sun and Mercury in Scorpio. So the first rule of negotiating with anything is show very little interest in it, right? And you'd be good at it. It says I've gone quiet here. Why did I go quiet? This is not good. Hold on. Something happened to the show here. Let me find the show. This is not good. Hold on. Where are we? Let me refresh the window here, just really quickly. Yeah, we should be online here. Okay, so anyway, you are somebody who can, I think, do this and pull it off. So
when is this going to be happening? When is this?
Jupiter is in your eighth house now.
Oh, it's going on. It'll be going on for a little while then.
It's going to go on through June. Okay.
Okay.
So what you want to do is you want to be able to take advantage of it, right?
Okay.
Go find some garage. There you go. So go out and do that, and do some research, and buy low, sell high.
Right. That's a good idea. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, listen. That's you got some info there, right?
I sure do. Thank you so much.
All right, Donna. Take care.
Take care. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. So can you hear me now? Let's do the Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now? Refresh the page. All right. You can hear now? Okay, great. Yeah, I don't know why that happened. I refreshed the page. It's maybe Blog Talk was hearing me talk about dissing their new homepage. It really isn't quite that, though, is it? All right. 104 here in Central Texas. You're listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'm Robert Phoenix. Lines are wide open, people. 347-308-8995. 347-308-8995. And I think that's Donna holding again. So call back in or call in. Let me just make sure this is Donna. Hold on. Donna, is that you? Is that you?
I wanted to listen, continue to listen.
Okay, I'm just going to put you on hold then, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Just have to make sure. Okay, so let's do the ritual again. 347-308-8995, 347-308-8995 if you'd like to have a free reading. I just put up a new post on my website. I don't know if you've seen it or not. And it was inspired by a number of things, but mostly my conversation with Sister Myra from 2 weeks ago. And one of the most interesting things about that conversation was I think the final half hour. And we got into some of the Super Bowl symbolism between the two teams and trying to backfill some of that stuff. But I thought where it really got interesting was when we started to talk about race. And race has always been an issue and a topic that has interested me for quite a long time. Like what makes us different and what makes us similar. I think it's a really fascinating subject, and it's a subject that a lot of people have difficulty discussing because there's so much taboo talking about race. So when we were talking about it, and so I'll just do the backstory here. I'll give you how we got there. Was that we were talking about Beyonce. We're talking about the Illuminati and Jay-Z and all that stuff, right? Of course, we're going to talk about that during the Super Bowl. And we started to talk about commercials with the Super Bowl, and then it kind of dovetailed into two kind of aspects. One was one of the things that she has talked about a number of times in her Super Bowl breakdown is a forwarding of an agenda, and let's just call it the gay agenda. That's what she would call it. In fact, that's what I would call it as well, because certainly there is a huge movement and has been for quite a while. Like, for instance, I watch TV here sparingly, but when I watch it, I tend to watch the local news, YNN. This is something that Time Warner puts out because I want to find out what's happening locally. I just moved here. And as I listen to the local news, there's at least one story per day on the local news that has something to do with gay rights or gay liberation or same-sex marriage. So it's a constant stream of information that's always kind of in the background. If you go to Yahoo, they'll have at least one story every other day that also embraces this topic. So, this is happening right now, and she's talked about this, and she's clearly said, well, this is an agenda. And what happened on the last show is she reiterated that, and she underscored it by saying, look, I really don't care, who people decide to love. I draw the line where people are telling me how to feel about it, which is, I totally agree with her. And for me, it's about any subject, by the way. It's not just pertaining to one particular subject. And we're being told both directly and indirectly by the culture police how we should feel or think or react. And what we need is less of that and more open discussion and more open dialogue and more debate so that we can talk through some of these things and not feel like anything is going to be verboten. That we need to be able to allow this circulation and air to breathe through our affairs. So anyway, we talked about that, and I asked her, how does she feel when people are equating the civil rights movement with the same-sex rights movement? She didn't like it. She said the two aren't even remotely related. And this is coming from a woman who is African-American and had lived through some of that. So that was interesting. And then we talked about commercials. And I noted that on a majority of the commercials now, the head of the household, the family, or the single guy, they're primarily black. 7 out of 10 commercials now, and I'm not being conspiratorial. I watch TV. I'm just making notes, and the majority of the men kind of look like an iteration of Barack Obama. They are lighter skinned, close cropped hair, metrosexualized, and I've noted before that in a lot of ways this is a very smart marketing move because the president is the biggest brand in the country, maybe the biggest brand in the world. I mean, the guy won the Nobel Peace Prize. Why wouldn't you have somebody in your commercial that resembles him? Because everybody's going to, begin to make this association from a symbolic level. Hey, that guy kind of looks like Obama, right? I mean, just from a commercial standpoint, it makes total sense. I mean, I'd have to go back in time to try to figure out how many people look like George Bush when he was president, but I don't have that much time. So anyway, we talked about that. We talked about, and she brought this up, how that they're promoting what you would call a hybrid form of the Black American or the Black experience. So a mixed race experience. And I thought this was really interesting because there's a very clear distinction between a particular type of person that's being sort of promoted through the media, like who was at the White House? It was Alicia Keys and Beyonce, and they're two very light-skinned representatives of the Black community. So we talked about this, and I actually did a blog post on it, and it gets into this whole concept of genetic manipulation, and I thought it was interesting. And you can go over to my website and you can read about it. And for me, it's what I did is I actually sent my blog entry out to a couple of people before I printed it, whose opinion that I really respect, and they read it, and they're they're very tied into the Black American spiritual experience, right? So I wanted them to give me some feedback, and they said thumbs up. So I'm like, okay, I got a green light here, so that must be a good thing. So I went ahead and published it. You can go over there and you can read it, and it's definitely food for thought. All right, RobertPhoenix.com, by the way, is the website. Let's take another call. Oh, hello there.
Oh, hey, Robert. This is Eric.
Hey, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing good. I heard you earlier. Thought I was calling in, so I figured I'd call in anyway.
Well, here we are. I must have been psychic. You were going to call, right?
Yeah, I think you just might be psychic.
Might be. What's going on, man?
Hey, I've been trying to mull over an idea of maybe doing some kind of spiritual retreat this year.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if astrologically you might know when's a good time for that.
Well, yeah. I mean, without even looking at your chart, I would say March.
March?
Yeah, because you want to go. I mean, theoretically, you're a Virgo, right?
Yes.
So it would be at the height of your, Virgo. When the sun is in Virgo, it's at the height of your powers, right? Solar return. When the sun is in the opposite sign, that is when you're theoretically you're Nadir. So that would be Pisces. And specifically with a spiritual retreat, right? Because Pisces is quote unquote a spiritual sign, or a sign that's often associated with spirituality, you would want to go and tap into that during that time. But let me just look at your chart real quick. But I would say, really, this is interesting. I got to share this with people right now. So I'm on astro.com, all right? And I just had somebody's site, or somebody's, I just did Donna's chart on astro.com. And the internet is amazing, because the internet now can take your information, like where you live, right? And it can, when I say the internet, like a website on the internet, and it can specifically target where you live and hit you with an ad based on where you live. Like, I didn't really opt in for any of this on Astro.com, but somehow, of course, they've determined that I live in Texas. And they have a banner ad that says Premier Texas Drug Rehab. Private proven addiction treatment, exceptional staff, leisure facility.
and it's on a page that has Scorpio as the sun sign. Very fascinating stuff. Anyway,
Let's hope their ads aren't psychic.
let's go. Let's find you. Let's see if I can find you're in here somewhere. I know you are. Where are you? Okay. Eric. I got Aaron. Let me just see here. I know you're in here somewhere, dude. All right, so this is not utterly compelling radio. When were you born again, Eric?
September 15th, 1975.
Right, 1575. There you are. I knew you were in here. Okay, so spiritual retreat. Okay, another good time for you for a spiritual retreat. I still hold true that Pisces would be a good time for that, but also August in Leo, because that's your 12th house, right? Actually, I think August would be better than March, because the sun would be going through your 12th house, would allow you to go inside, would allow you to, ruminate, reflect. It will hit your Venus. It'll cross your Venus as it goes through your 12th house, which would be cool, because then with Venus in your 12th house, it's not only about relationships with this world, but it's about relationships with other worlds and the world in which you came from before you decided to incarnate into a body. So you would have some insights with that as the sun would cross your natal Venus. And then what would happen is that the sun would continue. And I would say, by the way, I would go late August, like around the 18th. The 18th, depending on how long you wanted to go. Because then what would happen is then the sun would then come and cross your ascendant and then move into your first house, which would be kind of like, hey, I've just come through a great retreat. I get to celebrate. I get to celebrate my solar return. I feel really good. I've done all this tremendous work on myself. That would be the time I would go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. There's one other thing I always wanted to ask you about. A couple of years ago, you remember how they were talking about this new astrology stuff and that there was another sign?
Ophiuchus, yeah.
Ophiuchus?
Yeah.
And I never really got to the bottom of what that was all about or what happened to it, or what's your take on that?
Well, it's really interesting because astrologers and astronomers do not get along. And astrologers like to tweak astronomers. Astronomers like to tweak astrologers every now and then. And you're talking about a guy who was teaching at a junior college in Minnesota. And for some reason, the media glommed onto the fact that he was rubbing it in astrologers' faces that the constellations were set up differently than the signs. And he said, hey, there's 13 signs. There's 13 constellations. You're leaving out Ophiuchus, which is the serpent. And this happens all the time, but for some reason at that point in time, there was a real kind of cause celeb around this. And Good Morning America picked up on it, and it was in women's journals, and all these. It
seemed like some kind of agenda was going on in the media.
It was an agenda. It was an absolute agenda. It was a reptilian agenda because Ophiuchus is the serpent, right? So it was really the serpentine or the draconic consciousness was announcing itself and saying, hey, we're here now. That's what it was about. Wake up and pay attention, because this consciousness, this energy is asserting itself. And since then, there are people that do practice the 13 sign astrology. And I think if we look at also, if I'm not mistaken, if we go to that eclipse, it'll be interesting to look at that eclipse that I was talking about, because I believe it might be, I think at that time it might be either at the end of Scorpio, the beginning of Ophiuchus. I'd have to look. But really, I think that it was agenda-based. And I think it was kind of this meta-agenda about this draconic and serpentine energy that was saying, hey, pay attention. We're here now. That's my thoughts on it.
Well, and the big hubbub at that time was like, well, gee, you may not really be the sign that you thought you were because things might have shifted around.
Right, yeah. Well, what it does is it takes things back into sidereal fashion, right? Because it's sidereal related, sidereal based. So everything moves backwards. And if you're a Virgo, sidereal astrology never really affected me all that much because of the placement of my planets. They're all like late degree Libra, stuff like that, and some Virgo. So I'd still be a Virgo because I was born in 29 degrees Virgo. So it's really, that doesn't interest me all that much because it doesn't really change my life. If it changed my life more, it might interest me a little more. So, yeah.
So probably if it went the other direction, you probably would have been more into it, huh?
Oh yeah, if I'd have become a Leo at that point, I'd probably champion it. So no, it comes up from time to time, and a lot of it is, again, that guy was an astronomer and tweaking astrologers. But for whatever reason, probably agenda-based, because, again, the announcement of draconic serpentine energy, the mass media decided that they were going to really get behind it. So, yeah.
Was that also about the time that they announced Pluto wasn't a planet?
No, that was after. Yeah, I think it was significantly after that, to be honest with you.
Right.
Yeah, the Pluto after the planet thing is not a planet, is also kind of interesting as well. And there are a lot of astrologers have thoughts about that. And, sort of the meta theory around that was that they were denigrating and dismissing the transformational aspect of Pluto. By taking Pluto out of the equation, what they were doing was they were, in some ways, kind of creating almost like a time lock, and putting our own sort of state of affairs on this planet in amber, because Pluto is that planet that transforms the social condition transpersonally and also personally. So literally they're saying, hey, look, change, forget it. Pluto, you don't get that anymore with Pluto. We're downgrading Pluto. We're taking it out of the mix. You can't have that anymore as a planet that represents change and transformation. You're stuck where you are. So just live with it. Just deal with it. Some astrologers think that was really kind of the ulterior motive or hidden motivation behind it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Robert. Well, I always appreciate your insight.
Well, Eric, I always appreciate hearing your voice and having you a part of this mix and bringing some really interesting stuff to the Facebook discussions too, by the way. So, I'm glad you're here.
Great. Oh, great as always, Robert. I'll see you in the Facebook realm.
Okay. Bye, Eric.
All right. Bye.
That's our friend Eric. Let's see, where do we want to go? Let's go to 661, which I think is also a Skype line. Let's find out. Hello, thanks for holding.
Hi, you're doing astrological readings?
I am.
What do you need?
How about your name first?
Vicky.
Vicky, and you're on a Skype line. Where are you calling from, Vicky?
Carmel, California.
All right. So is this the first time you've listened to the show?
Yes.
And what do you think?
I've only been on for a couple minutes. So far, so good.
All right. Good first impression?
First impression? Yeah.
All right, excellent. Let me find an open charger for you. I don't want to take Eric's chart away from him since Eric's a client. All right, let's go here, and let's go here. All right, and let's edit this. Vicky, why don't you go ahead and give me your information? When were you born?
Denver, Colorado.
What day?
January 6, 1953.
Okay. 1953. All right, and what time was that?
8:17 p.m.
Okay. And you said Denver, correct?
Pardon me?
Denver, right?
Denver, yes.
All right. All right. This must be a heavy-duty reading. My cat just jumped up on my lap. All right, so there you are. Now, how much do you know about your chart?
I know I just got over my second Saturn return.
Yes, you did. How was that?
Not that much fun.
What did we learn from our second Saturn return?
Pardon me?
What did we learn from our second Saturn return?
What did we learn? Well, just pretty much let go of everything that was.
Your Saturn is in the second house. Third house. It's in the third house, which is siblings, brothers, sisters. It also conjuncts. You have Neptune at 23 Libra, and your Saturn is at 26 Libra. So when you go through a second Saturn return, you're not only going through a second Saturn return, you're also having Saturn sit on your natal Neptune, which is not fun, okay? So during your Saturn return, especially towards the end, we're talking, for you, it would have been like, let's go back to July, August, and September of 2012. Saturn moved out of Libra and into Scorpio in late October, early November. So it would have been that last stretch, really from June, July, August, September, which would have been kind of hopefully the liberation, the point of liberation for you. When Saturn sits on Neptune, part of what you have to go through is, really looking at your belief system, like what's real, who's real, what can you put in the bank, where your assets are, where your resources are. It's a very sobering kind of aspect, Saturn on Neptune, very sobering. Now, the good thing is with that is that Saturn would have been trining your Pluto during that time. You've got Pluto in the 12th house, and that's natally. And people that have 12th house Plutos tend to have, pretty dramatic events come into their lives. And the drama comes from out of the blue. It can be the sudden passing of somebody, the sudden losing of a job. But these are events that would force the individual to get in touch with the kind of the deeper stratum of who they are. Sometimes it can be actually quite tragic, especially if it's around the loss of a relationship. And you would have experienced that too, by the way, with Pluto opposing Venus. So anytime that you would go through a divorce or the significant loss of any relationship, it would take you into some very intense parts of yourself. It would almost feel like part of you is dying. So that Pluto in your 12th house is really about, somebody who decides, hey, I want a life on Earth, I'm going to incarnate, but I want the most kind of intense life that's going to bring me back to a focus where I'm remembering where I came from, what my soul is all about, and, where my true divinity lies. I'm going to incarnate with Pluto in the 12th house because I'm going to have these events that are going to force me to remember who I am, where I came from, and what's really the most important thing in my life. That's what Pluto there is. And with Neptune trining your Pluto, sextiling your Pluto, you have the ability to transform those deeper states, whether it's tragedy or loss or even, like weird paranormal phenomena. You have the ability to translate that into some kind of lucid explanation or discussion or understanding about what has occurred to you, okay? Because Saturn in the third house, which is where you have Saturn, is always going to bring you back into, what's clear, what's obvious, what's rational, what's real. And with Saturn bolted to your natal Neptune, it's about having a very real kind of spiritual practice in your life. So when you were going through your Saturn return, because Saturn was sextiling Pluto and also trining Mars and trining Venus in your seventh house, the onus was on you to put this together and say, okay, this is fine, this is great. How am I going to deal with this? How am I going to work with this? How is this going to translate into a map that I can live my life by. Because Gemini, which is the third house, has a lot to do with navigation with the world around you, the neighborhood around you, but also kind of navigation in your own life. So it's about putting together a plan. And I hope that for you, what came out of your Saturn return, that you had some kind of plan or something that you wanted to address as a result of what happened with you and to you during your Saturn return. Where you are right now, I think, has a lot to do with Neptune. Neptune is on your Venus. You have Venus in Pisces at 1 degree, and you have Mars conjunct Venus in your 7th house. At what degree is that? That's at 5 degrees. Because Mars and Venus oppose Pluto, you can have very intense feelings around relationships. And when relationships end, again, there can be a sense of real loss. Like maybe when you were younger and you had people that would leave you, it would almost feel like you were going to die when the relationship would end. It would be that intense, potentially that dramatic. And also with Venus conjunct Mars in Pisces in your 7th house, you would also be quite a bit of a romantic at times, even though you're a Capricorn and your Chiron is conjunct your Sun. So you're really trying to figure out the Capricorn trip. There's also part of you that's very, very romantic. And because Pisces can be very beguiling and also very charming, you would have almost a kind of a magically seductive aura about you as well. And people would be very attracted to you with Venus and Mars in your 7th house. A lot of times also people that have Venus in Pisces, they experience a lot of projection, and people will see them in ways that are either really blown up, like they would see them as being like a goddess, or an archetype, and they would project a lot of energy onto you as a result of that. But you can also be seen in a different light as well. You can be seen as a scapegoat at times for other people's problems and other people's issues in relationship. But Neptune is on your Venus right now, and that could actually be quite good. Are you in a relationship now? Are you married? What's going on with you in that realm of your life?
None of the above, but just open for it.
Okay, it's a good time, actually, to be open for it, because Neptune on your Venus is essentially saying, hey, guess what? You could have a relationship that would not only be beneficial, but it could also be a very spiritual relationship. So if I were you, what I would do is I would put myself in arenas where, if this is important to you, I would put myself in arenas or places where I could meet people. If you're into men, I mean, who knows these days, but if you're into men, you want to meet a man, I would go to a place where you would find a person that would reflect your own spiritual interests. And that could be seminars, workshops, go to a Silomar or Ojai, or, places in your area. Go to, Big Sur, go to Esalen. Put yourself in an environment where you can actually meet somebody that would be a reflection of your own spirituality, because I think that can happen for you in a very big way right now with Neptune on your Venus. And Neptune's going to be on your Venus for another 2 years. So not only could you meet somebody, but you could actually have a really wonderful 2-year stretch where you're exploring, the depth and the dimension of being with another person in a relationship that has a spiritual focus. So I would urge you to do that. Pluto, you're getting ready to have Pluto come up on your Chiron and come up on your Sun. Pluto gets to 12 degrees this year. It'll be within 2 degrees of your Chiron. And in 2014, it will hit your Chiron and begin to conjunct your Sun. This will be a very powerful time in your life and a very pivotal time for you. It will oppose Uranus in your chart. And when Pluto opposes Uranus, what you're really trying to do is break free of structures and forms that are no longer suitable for you. That would be actually breaking free of social groups, friends, social networks that are no longer necessarily kind of, where your head is at, and you're really going to focus on your identity. So you, as an individual, become a prime focus starting in 2013 and going through 2014 and 2015. Pluto moves very slowly. And this is actually a very pivotal and very powerful time in your life. In many ways, too, it would also augur what I would call the resurgence of your heart, or the resurgence of your ability to feel, your ability to be romantic, your ability to kind of let go and really enter into a good, kind of second phase of your life. So I think as Pluto is moving upwards and swinging upwards in your chart, this is actually quite a good thing. So that's just kind of a 40,000-foot view of what's going on with you right now. Jupiter's in your 10th house, and anytime Jupiter transits the 10th house, there is some opportunity to kind of expand your work, your career, your, network, communication, writing, anything that has to do with the sharing of information is a part of your sort of template for working here on this planet. And whatever you're doing now, you want to expand in those areas. So whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, whether it's PR, whether it's research, whether it's writing, that when Jupiter transits your 10th house, you want to be able to kind of ride that wave and surf that wave. Saturn, by the way, now that you've gone through your Saturn return, you're going to have Saturn on your side, because Saturn is going to be going backwards and be trining your Mars in Pisces. So that's good. You like that. Why? Because the Saturn-Mars trine is about building things back up again and fortifying who you are. Saturn in the 3rd house also helps you, get really focused with any kind of detail-oriented work, whether it's studying, whether it's taking tests, whether it's learning something new at the junior college in town. Saturn in the 3rd house is quite good for that.
Wow, that's all pretty right on. I had to move out of the house I lived in for 15 years, or actually 20 years last year, and my job's dried up, and I had started a new jewelry business, infusing it with healing, and so that's what I'm doing now.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, jewelry is very detail-oriented work. So
yes.
That's perfect. In fact, I actually had an image of jewelry in my head when I said I did. I'm not lying. So,
that's great.
All right, so if you want to meet somebody, put yourself out there, and you will meet. I mean, trust me, with Neptune on your Venus, you have a tremendous opportunity to meet somebody pretty cool and go places.
Yeah, I've been out of relationship for about 20 years working on myself, and have just, now to the point where I feel like I can it's changed enough to want to attract who I am now.
Well, you got your 2nd Saturn return, right? It's all behind you now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I actually feel like opening myself up to that now for the first time in a really long time.
Well, good. Well, thank you for calling, Vicki, and checking in with us, okay?
Yeah, that was a great reading. Thank you very much.
All right, take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, we got 22 minutes, the magic 22 left in the show. Let's try and do these pretty quickly. All right, here we go. Hello there.
Yeah, that was a great reading.
Hello.
Take care.
Hello. Hello. Going once. Going twice. Let's try and do these times. You're back and hold. All right. Let's go here. Hello there.
Hello.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Are you talking to me?
I am.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Hi, I'm Petra, and I was just wondering if you could tell me what the stars say about me.
Okay. You have a lovely voice. Where are you from?
Germany.
Germany. Okay. And Petra, what is your birthday?
4/1953.
All right. 4/1953. Let's see. There we go. And where were you born?
In Germany.
Okay. Town?
Schweinfurt.
What is a big town near that?
Pardon me?
What is a large city near that?
Frankfurt.
Frankfurt. Okay, let's do that. Let's go here. Frankfurt. All right. Frankfurt, Germany. One of the biggest airports in the world that I've ever been to. That airport goes on forever. All right. There is your chart. By the way, the train from Frankfurt to Cologne, or Cologne, however you pronounce it.
Cologne, yeah.
One of the most beautiful train rides I've ever been on.
Isn't that nice? Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the first time I did it twice. First time I did it, I had to pinch myself. I'm like, I'm in Germany, I'm in a train, and I'm cruising along the Rhine, and there are castles on the hill, and I'm having a beer. Life is good. So
life is good. I agree.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, it was lovely. So let's look at your chart here. You have Sun in Aries, and you are right at the end of Aries, 29 degrees.
I know.
Yeah. So is there anything that you want to focus on, or you just want me to kind of riff here?
Yeah, put it that way. I'm having my past is kind of dragging along with me, and I want to see if I get rid of the bad.
Yeah.
Karma seems like who comes with it, and if, I'm maybe eventually be free of the baggage.
Yeah. So the 29th degree of a sun sign is a challenging degree. I raised my hand and born 29 degrees Virgo. And the thing with the 29th degree is that you've reached the end of the energy of the sign. And a lot of times people want to just go ahead and get to the very next sign. So for you, it would be Taurus. And the difference between Taurus and Aries is, and you do have some strong Taurus in your chart. You've got Jupiter and Mars conjuncting together in Taurus. So you do have the Tauran kind of groundedness and stability. But the Aries, you really want to get to that Taurus energy, which is everything's settled, everything's over, it's a fixed sign, I can just relax, But the 29th degree won't necessarily let you do that. It's a hard degree, too, because the 29th degree people have a hard time of letting go. And so endings and beginnings come up with the 29th degree. So you have to say, okay, I'm going to make a stand in the 29th degree. For you, that's in the sign of Aries, which means you have to take responsibility. You have to have the energy to essentially look your problems square in the eye and say it is not karma, although there could be karma, but in this instance we're going to say it is not karma. It is me. It is me. I'm going to end my problems. I'm going to end my baggage. I'm going to end my the dark energy that follows me around. I'm the one. Because that's the energy of Aries, right? And you have Aries in your chart. You've got Mercury 2 degrees Aries. You have Venus in Aries. So this is not uncommon for you. So, but as a 29th degree Aries, what you want to do is you want to go to Taurus. You want to go, I just want to be in a really nice place with a bunch of pillows and really good food and a nice glass of wine and a big hunky man to kind of, hug me and, kiss me every now and then, doesn't that sound great? Well, yeah.
That sounds wonderful.
It does sound good, but you've got that Aries thing, so you've got to say, you got to put your fist down and say, enough is enough, okay? I can't be a Taurus right now. I have to take command and control of this, and I'm going to be the one that makes the stand. And here's what happens. This is the irony and the paradox of the 29th degree. Once you do it, you get this stuff. You get the stability. You get the fixity. You get the luxury. You get the comfort. I'm a Virgo, right? I'm 29 degrees Virgo. All I want to do is get to Libra and wear really nice clothes, go to really nice restaurants, eat really good food, have really great conversations, and be around beautiful women. I mean, that's really what Libra wants to do, because I'm a man, right? I mean,
exactly.
but I can't do that. I've got to be a Virgo. I got to show up 3 times a week. I got to be here at 12 o'clock every Wednesday so I can talk to people, so I can help them, so I can be of service, I can do the charts. And when I do that, my life works. When I don't do that and I get into kind of the, lazy, sensual, poetic Libra, my life doesn't really work. So I'm just sharing with you a lesson in my life, and for you it's Aries. And it's like you taking control and you saying this is going to end and this is how it's going to end, and then you get into it. And guess what? You get the security, you get the luxury, and you get the good stuff. But it's when you activate your sun at the 29th degree that's when that takes place, okay? Now, there's another piece for you, and that's Saturn going through the 12th house. Saturn, the 12th house Saturn transit is one of the most important transits in the zodiac. And Saturn is in your 12th house for a while. It went into your 12th house at 20 degrees Libra. So we're going back to 2009 and 2010. That's when your Saturn transit occurred. And I've talked about this before. In fact, I talked about it at length on last week's show. The Saturn transit is a really important transit. It gets you into the depths. It takes you into a shamanic journey of sorts, especially because it's in the sign of Scorpio, right? So you're almost out of this. Saturn's at 11 degrees right now, and it's like it's almost at your ascendant, but it's going to go backwards, and it goes back to 4 degrees, and it gets back up to 11 degrees in October, November, December of this year. By October, November, December this year, I'm telling you, if you activate your Aries, if you activate that Aries energy, and you take control of your life and allow Saturn to continue to go through your 12th house and to have you really go deeply into your, I would say, your spiritual hardwiring, facing your fears, facing your obsessions, your demons, all these things which you would experience with going through the 12th house, you transform them. You are using Saturn. You are using Saturn and Scorpio as a diagnostic tool to get in there and not be afraid. And then as Saturn moves and comes up into your ascendant and hits your ascendant and comes into your first house, you've graduated, okay? You've graduated. And now you get to use all that Saturn energy to make changes in your personal life. It's one of the most important transits that anybody can go through, the Saturn 12th house transit. It is reacquainting us with our higher power. Because we cannot do this alone, you see. We cannot do it alone. And when Saturn goes to the 12th house, we can feel the most alone at times than any other time of the Saturn transit through the zodiac. And what happens then is like, okay, if I feel alone, what do I do? Well, sometimes people get on their knees and they pray to God, help me. I can't solve this on my own. I know I'm an Aries sun and I'm doing the best that I can, but help me, or whatever deity you pray to, that's the Saturn 12th house transit. Ultimately, what it's trying to do is it's trying to get you in touch with your soul. That's what the Saturn 12th house transit is. And then you bring whatever soul contact you have and you bring it into the first house. And now you bring it into the light of day. You bring it into your identity. And now you're ready for another 28-year period, right, of Saturn going all the way around the chart. So that's what you're going through right now in your life, and you're cleaning up.
That's right.
Cleaning up, and with your Aries sun, you're saying I'm taking responsibility for it. It's not on anybody else. Not on anybody else right now. It's on me. So if you need to end something, whether it's a relationship, or whether it is an attitude or a belief, this is your time to practice that Aries. This is it. Done. And then the thing, Aries more than any other sign, get to understand and experience the ramifications and the impact of their will faster than any other sign. So when you make a decision and you do something, you will see it happen almost immediately. Okay?
Sounds great. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Okay, Petra. Thank you for calling in, and don't be a stranger.
Thanks. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so I think we've covered a lot of ground today, don't you? I think so. I got to tell you, you don't know this, but I would say that probably 3/4 of the time that I do this show, especially on Wednesday, but it's primarily on Wednesday, my cat is on my lap during this show as I'm talking to you. And the image that I have is the high priestess, right, with the cat by her side. You know, it's amazing. The high priestess, by the way, is one of my cards. It's one of my numbers, 2, number 2. I got to tell you, you know, when I was in my 20s and I was like, oh, your card is the high priestess, I hated that. I did. It's like, are you kidding me? Why do I get the high priestess? Why can't my card be the emperor? Why can't my card be the magician? Why can't my card, you know, fill in the blank, the high priestess? It's the high priestess. Over time, I've come to actually appreciate the high priestess. Right? Am I right, Kitty Cat? Yes, I am. All right, let's take one more call. Here we go. Okay, hey, you made it. Congratulations. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hello?
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Can't get in the chat room, but just wanted to say hello and let you know that everyone is very pleased that you are doing the 29-degree Virgo thing.
Is this Sandra?
Yes, it is.
Hey,
yes,
Sandra.
Sandra.
Yeah. Well, Well, you know, I had to wake up and smell the coffee at some point in time, right?
Well, it's kind of the same with myself. I do a lot of readings. I'm just kind of here now that I'm retired. And so many people, you know, I think a lot of times they just want someone to listen to them. And there are times when I don't really want to do that, but I just kind of dig my heels in and think that's why I'm here. And whenever I get through it and do it, everything always works 500 times better than had I not done that. It's just kind of fulfilling what we're supposed to do, evidently.
Yeah, and the 29th degree, it's been a real interesting journey towards that. But it's not just, you know, doing the work, but it's also like details of my personal life and stuff that, because I got one foot in this world and one foot in another world, and so you know, staying grounded has not always been my strong suit. If you look at my chart, everything is you know, basically from the 8th house to the 12th house, with the exception of Saturn. I have Saturn in Capricorn in my 2nd house. That's kind of like the anchor. It's like the earth anchor to my chart. So anyway, how are you? Are you doing okay?
Yes, thank you. My husband is doing really well. Everything went great. I mean, really, really good.
Oh, good.
Just keeping warm is kind of the main thing. It's so cold here. Oh, my goodness. So cold in central Indiana and everything. But why do I get the feeling, Robert, that you're being in Austin now, it's bringing out some new puzzle pieces to your self-identity? I get that impression so strongly sometimes that you're really finding something there that maybe is a little bit of a surprise, or it isn't fitting together quite the way that you maybe would have anticipated. It's like a real discovery, you being there. It's not exactly what you thought it would be like. I kind of get that impression.
Well, it's interesting, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been here now 4 months, and
oh, wow.
the time is going by really quickly. And actually, about 3.5 months. It's going by really, really quickly. And I have not really connected into the local scene that much, and I'd like to do more of it. because on one level, I want that because it'd be cool. I'd like to have a community around me. On another level, it would make me feel less like I'm visiting. And I don't want that feeling because I feel like I'm visiting here anyway, on the planet most of the time. So, I made a long move to be in a new geographical location. So I'd like for it to stick. And so I guess maybe on that level, Sandra, I'd like to feel more permanent than it's kind of feeling, to be honest with you. And I think, having more kind of locally based relationships and be more involved in a local scene would help me out with that. But really, I spend most of my time, to be honest with you, in my apartment, either working on the blog, either producing or doing the show, or doing readings. And that's where the majority of my time is, here in this place. So,
but there's something, Robbie, there's something to be said for physicality. I mean, there's really something that is quite wonderful about being in the body sometimes and connecting with a village, so to speak, when you go to the market or the bank,
right,
or to know these people and to have known them for quite a few years, or the people that you work with, you feel like it's truly an extended family when you can kind of dig and grow roots into that soil. It's a wonderful thing, really. It helps some of the craziness floating around now. Everything is just it's a mad world, as that old movie used to be called. It truly is. It's getting more and more bizarre. We don't know what to believe.
Yeah, it is, and a lot of that is intentional too, by the way.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And you help us so much sorting that out. I am just thrilled to pieces that you're there, or you're here to help us sort through so much of this debris of stuff.
I do it for myself, and as a result, hopefully I can pass that along to other people. But you're right about the village piece. The place that I moved from was a little place called Point Richmond, which was at the edge of Contra Costa County in the East Bay, right on the bay, and it was a tiny little village. It's exactly what it was, and I really enjoyed it. I would walk into town, and I wouldn't drive. I would walk into town. I'd say hi to people, and I'd buy people coffee, or I'd go to the local pub and have dinner and watch a game and have play trivia with a little team.
Yeah.
I mean, I had that, so I know what that's like, and it was quite enjoyable. And here, I've landed in a kind of an apartment complex, and I don't know. It's interesting, and it's allowing me to kind of experience a resurgence of energy because I was kind of tapped out in California. But I mean, I think I've got a few more chapters here. We'll see where it goes.
You do, and a lot of the growth that we're experiencing now, it doesn't have to be painful or traumatic or hateful. It can be conquerable. It can be as simple as just relating on a deeper level day to day with people. Not all growth is tortured, although sometimes we get the impression that it is. Sometimes growth is just pleasant and nice.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and Sandra, you're such a wise person, and you're absolutely right about that. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to call and not take a lot of your time, dear, but just to say hi, and I'll keep trying to get into the chat room. I don't know what that's all about, but we'll see.
Okay. Well, I will. I've actually encountered a problem before with the chat room, and I tried on behalf of one of the listeners to do something, and Blog Talk told me to go to their customer service and open a ticket. So that's the only thing I can share with you right now. Okay.
Oh, that's more than enough. I will do that if need be. And you have a wonderful rest of the week, and thank you so much for being here for all of us. You're the best astrologer I have ever listened to. You just fit so many things together and seamlessly. It's just awesome. I really enjoy listening to your shows. I do.
Thank you, Sandra. Appreciate that. It means a lot to me. It helps me keep going. So thanks again. All right, we'll see you. Okay. Okay, you still there? She's gone. I think she just dropped off. All right. Well, that's it, boys and girls. The train has pulled into the station. the Starry Express has pulled into the station. We've navigated 2 hours of astrological and astronomical phenomena, and I thank you for doing it. RobertPhoenix.com is where you can find me. Also on Facebook. Just spent a lot of time and a lot of really interesting conversations. You know the drill. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. This is Robert Phoenix. I'll see you on Friday with the Farcast. Adios.
In the name I am that I am, son of tomorrow, I call forth the light of the living word, beloved Elohim, beloved archangels, beloved mighty choans of the rays and the lords of karma. I call for the action of beloved Pallas Athena, beloved goddess of liberty, beloved Nada, beloved Kuan Yin, beloved Portia, beloved great divine director, beloved all-seeing eye of God, Cyclopeia. Let God's will be done, let God's will be done, let God's will be done. I do in the action of the sacred fire in this hour, descend on mighty cosmos, secret rays. I am the holding of the balance of Lord Gautama Buddha, beloved Sanat Kumara and the 7 holy Kumaras. I call upon the sacred fire, I call upon the light of God that never fails. Beloved mighty, I am present, come forth in this hour of the victory. Come forth in this hour of the victory of the God slain. I am the full power, beloved mighty, be with us this night. Beloved Jesus, send it to me, Lord, my Savior, Gautama and Sanat Kumara. Come, Lord, now in the victory of the God slain. Send the light 10,000 suns. Beloved mighty, stand, mighty, stand, mighty, stand. Presence of any sort of aim around this fortune now. I call upon the great symbols and magnets. I call